Good morning, everyone. It is February 25th, 2020. We will call the Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And welcome, everyone. Nice to see some people in our room. Oh, the first item is our minutes. If you've had a chance to review them.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 22 pages of minutes from February 18th.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner DeLayden. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. I didn't think we talked that much at the last meeting, but...
Yeah, there was a lot. All right, the agenda for today. Anyone have any additions? All right.
Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner DeLayden to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Is there anything you'd like to remove for further discussion, Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner DeLayden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. All right. Might not be quite 9:02, but we welcome Shauna Othman, the business manager from the Sheriff's Office, to the podium.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Today we have a resolution in front of you. We applied for and have received another one of the DNR equipment grants. So it is a very specific piece of equipment that we have requested and they have approved that we purchase. It is a resolution for the amount of $48,310. What this is going to allow us to do is we're going to buy a 17-foot Boston Whaler patrol boat. The current boat that we have, if you remember a couple years ago, we got a grant for a river boat. This is a lake boat that's replacing one that we have that has a rotten transom.
Yeah, wonderful that they granted us that.
Yes.
All right.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the grant through the DNR for the purchase of a patrol boat. I'll second it.
All right. Motion made and seconded for the resolution. Is there any more discussion?
I'm just curious on why we want a whaler boat.
They're kind of a nice wide.
Not a boat person, I'm a money person.
Well, I am just to the point where a Boston Whaler is a top shelf type boat, center console, very well made. You'll get many years of service out of it. So you're not getting the Walmart type boat. You're getting a really top shelf boat.
So we're not planning on doing any whaling?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Resolution.
Aye.
Mr. Vetch. Aye.
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 Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you, Shauna. Mr. Bob Hevola, Auditor Treasurer. Welcome.
The first item on the agenda is really I'm going to let Matt talk about it. This is another partial abandonment. So.
All right. Matt Dedgen.
Chair, members of the board.
Morning.
So this is to approve the findings and order granting the petition to partially abandon areas of County Ditch 29. If you remember, we had the public hearing about a month ago, and this is just the resolution that Greg came up with for that. So, I don't know if you had any specific questions. I would like to point out there is a an item number 10 on that resolution, which is talking about outstanding liens on the system. We got significant viewer costs to do this redetermination of benefits, and then this partial abandonment happened after. Technically, those landowners are supposed to pay off those liens before that can be officially abandoned. So Greg covers that in item number 10, that they'll still pay for that portion of the work done for the redetermination.
All right, and this is a vote, not a resolution, correct?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the findings and orders granting a petition to partially abandon County Ditch 29.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Lyons?
This was a spot or part of the ditch that really didn't provide any benefit to any farms or anything, right?
Yeah, except for really the landowner who petitioned. It was a branch of the ditch, so it was meant to drain one wetland area. That landowner wanted to maintain it as a wetland. There was actually a berm that was put on there to create a wetland again, so.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, they appreciated that wetland, it
Yep.
needed for farming.
Yep, no, that's great.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
For
Commissioner
disclosure, these are friends of mine that own this, and I've seen the property, know what it's just a spur going out there. It really has no function as a county ditch. In the first place, I don't know how it got on there, but, and they're more environmental, leave it the way God intended to be, and that's how they want to do it. They are fully well aware of what this means for them in the future and everything else by getting off here, so it's not like it's a surprise for them.
Yeah, we had in-depth discussions about what that means, what rights they would be forfeiting in the future with it, and they were definitely on board for that. So.
They're aware of it.
All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, the January revenue expenditure report.
So Board, 1 month into the year, normally I don't have anything to draw your attention to, but this time I thought I would draw your attention to page 12. It's just an acknowledgement of all the activity that's going on. The IT overtime is at 26% of the budget. They just have a lot of people working on big projects like ERP and stuff like that. So they've incurred a significant amount of overtime just in the first month. So other than that, I don't have anything to draw your attention to.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bob, is this across the board or just one or two departments?
We really noticed it in the IT department.
Just the IT?
Right.
Okay, well,
When
not surprised.
Commissioners, when I present to you the March, all of the budget amendments that we're doing, those will be effective in March. So March will have an amended budget. So this is the adopted budget that you have.
All right, any more questions?
Not a surprise.
Is
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the January revenue expense.
made by
report.
Commissioner
Second.
Potter, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. More discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Bob.
Madam Chair, if I can just put a plug in, we do have the presidential nomination primary next Tuesday. A lot of excitement is starting to build up, so we'll be processing ballots in my office the rest of this week.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Bob, since I got so much heat about the poll pads for the primary, and you said it was updates that weren't given to us in time to get but we fully anticipate the poll pads being ready for the general election.
Absolutely.
Tell me it is.
Yes, we'll be using the poll pads for the primary and the general election, so.
Okay. So there was some question on if the updates to the software was there in time for us.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Potter, if I can just add from the conference I was at last week, part of the frustration around the members was the extra work that every county was doing to patch in update the poll pads and load the software update, then have another update after they did training. So all in all, I think it was a good decision for us not to use the poll pads. But yes, for sure, we're going to take advantage of that technology in the general election.
Thank you.
That's when we'll really need them.
Yes.
Madam Chair? It's just not Wright County that had this issue. It's every county in Minnesota. that
Every
uses it.
county that's using poll pads has run into this issue. They committed to moving forward with it, so they put a lot of stress on their resources, and they'll succeed. But we just felt with a lot of movements, we weren't going to use them for the presidential nomination primary.
Madam Chair, I think a lot of it surrounds the fact that voters have to declare a party in the primary, so I think trying to get the balloting and stuff to finesse with that is probably, I'm guessing, a lot of what the challenge is, because the general and the primary don't require such constraints.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Vetch, this is really about just loading the software.
Just the
I mean,
software?
it did have the nuance of adding another question in there, but really it was just using the software, updating the poll pad to the new iOS software, and then loading the application onto it, and then loading the update to the application onto it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. More to
All
come, and
good.
the general election will be here before we know it, huh? And we'll be ready. Thank you.
The fun's already began.
All right. It has. So we're already up to our committee minutes for February 18th. And Commissioner Vetch, if you will take those, please.
So we had a committee of the whole on February 18th. I'm not going to list all the people if you're interested in looking to see who was in attendance, but all 5 commissioners were in attendance, and a variety of staff and other people were present. Ehlers and Associates were there to make a presentation on the different economic development, community development authorities, and HRAs and their capabilities and what they could do for a county if we decided to maximize any of those tools as here at Wright County. Bruce Kimmel presented a lot of the EDA statutory powers and kind of centering around in the PowerPoint about if you did an HRI, the ability to buy and sell property, the ability to issue bonds, make loans, housing grants, redevelopment, carry out federal housing programs, construct and own housing, utilize TIF, and levy taxes as a separate entity. And basically, you can combine that with an EDA and make a more clearer authority for economic development and more flexibility for loans. A lot of the counties in the 7 metro area have kind of done CDAs, Community Development Authorities, which are kind of a combination of economic development and housing HRAs. But basically, it's more of a name than it is anything as a CDA. It's more just wrapping up those EDA powers and HRA powers into one. There's a discussion back and forth amongst commissioners about where we should go forward from here. It kind of came to a consensus that we would recommend kind of going into an exploratory committee. We instructed staff to work with Ehlers and Associates to develop by statute what is required under subdivision 2 of statute 469.1082 as to what that committee needs to be made up of, as it is a little bit of a complex statute, and it has a lot of rules as to who needs to sit on this recommending committee. So we'll be looking forward to come back with that information sometime within the next month to look at formalizing that committee to research HRA and EDA capabilities for Wright County. And Madam Chair, with that, I make a motion to approve the recommendations and minutes from February 18th.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Discussion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delighten.
will Bruce be here on the March 3rd meeting?
He will only be able to call in or video in. Getting a proposal from him, I had a discussion with him again this morning, so hoping to have the proposal yet either today or tomorrow, and so he would be able to present it a different Tuesday perhaps. I was thinking we can get the proposal in your hands, and if there's any questions prior to next Tuesday, we could direct them to him to follow up since he's not able to attend, or if the board chose, look at a different Tuesday in March.
Yeah.
I can't get my phone to shut.
It's helpful, but
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would rather have Bruce here in person than a video thing, because we're going to lose too much in the translation there, and there's going to be a lot of questions.
okay.
I'd rather have him here in person. I'd find a time that he can actually be here, because this is kind of important to take these steps the right way.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice to get the information from him.
Early.
Yeah, so we can review it and then come up with the questions that we're gonna have.
And certainly, as we had discussion at the meeting, there are a lot of components to these, different options, and, we want to do it right. We don't want to rush. So certainly, if it takes a couple of more weeks, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. Obviously, the recommendation stated either today's board meeting or next Tuesday, so we were trying to be responsive to that.
Yeah.
We certainly will have a proposal and some information to move forward, but Bruce is only available remotely for next Tuesday, so.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I agree with Commissioner Potter about him being here.
Commissioner,
Madam Chair, I mean, I think the process itself, even the committee that would be formed out, I think that's a pretty drawn-out process in itself into coming back with a recommendation, and I think they have to kind of develop a scope potentially? Is, maybe you have a better idea of that, Lee?
Correct, yeah. The discussions I've had with Bruce are putting together basically a statement of work in 2 phases. Basically, the first phase would be developing that committee, and the second phase would be the committee actually carrying the work. Per statute, it kind of dictates the membership of said committee. There's a notification process that has to go out to all of the city agencies and any other development agencies within the county. Once that committee is formed and moving forward, you have to have a recommendation come back to the board within 60 days. So I've asked Bruce to really put together that statement of work in 2 phases if the board chooses to have their assistance in all of it or part of it. So it gives you some more
Good.
options.
All right.
Perfect.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll look forward to more. All right, the Justice Center Owners Committee from February 19th. Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Justice Center Owners Committee met February 19th, and we just did basically these construction updates on what's going on. Level 0 is the lower level. They're painting on south end. They're working their way through sheetrock and mechanical rough end. Paint is applied in the Law Enforcement Center connection hallway. As Level 2 courtroom wall panels are being mounted. Keep in mind the panels are, you have to have climate control on those, so they've been sitting in there long enough. Now they can be put up and ensure that they don't warp like Blue Earth County had theirs. They put theirs up before they were acclimated and didn't turn out so good. And then the terrazzo floor in the lobby is being completed and installed in their public restrooms, doors, and back house area. Public zones, it will not be affected and mounted in public zones due to significant contractor traffic at this time. We got to keep some pathways open for the contractors to get their work done, so some of those don't get put in. Penthouse of refrigeration piping is ongoing, and then Philippine, we talked about the long-term scheduling. Substantial completion in July with move-in planned late August, early September, and with that, it's a matter of getting that with the court's scheduling to make sure it matches. I think they have a conference or something around that time. They're trying to make sure it matches with their schedule too. And we had some PR items that were to be approved there. Nothing out of the ordinary. Was the cast stone stills. We had some metal for the handicap walkway coming up, and it looked cheap and cheesy. It looked more like a pole shed from a farming operation, so we decided to go away from that and go into the cast stone sills around the main entry. It looks much better. And at the end of the project, that was $33,000. That was a big ticket, but they had some of the caps with that metal on there, and it just didn't look good. There are too many seams, chance of people catching and getting hurt on that. And otherwise, the change orders to date were written. We got a contingency balance of a negative $353,000. But keep in mind that we transferred some money from that for the government center to get some earthwork and get that stuff done at the point in time we were doing this. So some of that money is going to come back in to the Justice Center to make that number a positive one again. I think it's almost $700,000 if I'm not mistaken. It was going to come back in there, but we just inter-fund borrowing to get the other part started in time to try to keep these things in sequence here. And there's really nothing else on that, Madam Chair, besides what the schedule review, short term, we're through. So we're about we're a month behind. Not a big deal. It's just make sure it gets done correctly, because we've seen the horror stories of other ones. And with that, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes and the PR, because that one was over the certain dollar amount, $33,197. That requires approval of the board here.
All right, and the rest of the recommendation? Or?
And the
Technology equipment.
Yeah, just for clarification, I want to make sure that we get the approval for the Marco and the technology.
Oh, absolutely, and I
Well-
apologize for missing that, because I was going right through to the schedule on that, because more dialed in it. And there was a talk about the technology in there, because there was a quite lengthy there with the Marco equipment that Mark Kellogg had come out and explained that one. There was not only the stone entry change, but also the technology equipment proposal and the options to change the finish in the public area from Venetian plaster to just paint or tile or something. That'll be more going forward.
All right, motion for the minutes and the recommendation?
Yes.
Commissioner Potter?
I'll second it.
There's a second by Commissioner Delyden. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
regarding the technology in the courtrooms, we had approved a position for somebody that was going to be dealing with the audiovisual and that sort of stuff. Where are we with that position?
Last update I had is the job description was being developed. It was a bit of a hold up on getting the points to the position due to the union not being scheduled. We wanted to use the current contractor for doing that. So we're moving it forward as soon as we can, knowing that the optimum time to have them on board is while the stuff's getting spec'd and installed.
Yeah.
So a little behind the preferred timeline, but I think we'll still be able to make it.
Okay, so it hasn't been posted yet then?
Correct. That is correct.
Good.
And I guess, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just concerned with technology and how sometimes it can be difficult to find somebody to fit those shoes, so.
Sure. Just one other thought, we did have quite a bit of discussion at the meeting about the interior finishes in the public hallways and Venetian plaster. I don't know if that warrants a follow-up meeting with the entire board or staff were kind of looking for direction on how to proceed with that item, as there's kind of been
Madam Chair.
some thoughts. So, sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administrator Kelly, I do recall that, and this is because the potential price tag on it, I think this is one that even Commissioner Burrell says we'd like the whole board to see which way they want to go on this, and that was his feeling, that because if you're going to change from a Venetian plaster to a paint or a tile or this or that, because you're talking the hallways, it's a little bit, pretty expensive. Just want to let the rest of the board in on and see what they think on this. We got a little bit of time, but not a lot of time to make this call. Doesn't have to be happening tomorrow, but I think it's one of those things that we need to have the whole board comfortable which way we go, because the Venetian plaster just isn't looking right. It just doesn't have that good light. It looks like a cement wall. It doesn't look good.
All right.
All right.
Any more discussion?
Is this something we're going to schedule sooner than later, or what do we?
Well, it was kind of left with open as of the committee on last week, so I was just, not to poke at the issue, but as Commissioner Potter mentioned, it was spec to be Venetian plaster in those whole areas. We had some discussion on whether that was to remain or if we were going to go with a tile or just a paint and so forth. So it's been kind of a tight turnaround to really develop anything for visuals on that. So it's kind of at some point, you paint your house a certain way and 10 people may come in and 2 may hate it, 2 may love it, and the rest may be in the middle. I think there's some of that here as well.
Do we have somewhat of an idea what that additional cost is going to be?
Well, again, it was spec'd as Venetian plaster for the area,
Madam
so.
Chair, Commissioners, we can address some of this today. I guess the question is, are we looking to make a change, or are we looking to just make incremental changes to the color or texture of the Venetian plaster in those spaces?
I guess
So,
I haven't seen it. Have you?
we would still recommend to continue with the Venetian plaster. It would not be a change to the project. There would not be a cost difference. There would not be any sort of PR related to that. It would just be changing the color and texture to make, as Lee was saying, commissioners, you'd be able to make a decision about how that feels to you in the space without actually making a cost change. So we would still recommend to continue with the Venetian plaster in those spaces and just look at differences in color and texture. And we can present some of that even today if you'd like to look at some of that, but it may be something that is better in a less open forum, just for you to be able to make more nuanced decisions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
Thank you,
Potter.
Madam Chair. Anthony, part of the question for Commissioner Burrell and other people on the tour is because you need the person applying the Venetian plaster to actually know what they're doing. I mean, I could put it on there, look herky-jerky, and it won't look so good. I mean, some of the color schemes were part of it, but then the application part of it was the other part of the question that came up.
Right.
And I think Commissioner Burrell really did want to have us talk about that. If there's a potential change, or we stop and do something else. I think this is where he was pretty clear on what his intention, what he wanted to see on this. If next Tuesday, would that be too late to do this?
I don't think it'd be too late. I mean, I think it's just something that, as Mr. Potter's saying, there's a very nuanced texture to this in that it's an artisan product that gets applied by artisans. So it's not just something that is as simple as I pick out a tile or I pick out a paint. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it. So it's something that you should probably look at in the field, actually see the applications, see what some of the options are. And if we do need to explore making a change, we can do that. However, I would encourage you to try to not make a change in that that would be a cost and that's going to be a delay to the project, so.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Rat.
I mean, biggest question I have is, okay, looks bad is one thing, which is still, and how bad that looks is something I have to weigh in, but then there's the integrity of the product. If it's not applicated properly, I mean, is it kind of a dual issue there? Or is it just really aesthetics? And I guess I haven't seen it, so I haven't seen what's done in there, so I don't know how bad this
Well, I think
aesthetics is.
let's take that into a different context. Looks bad, I think it comes back to personal preference on what you're expecting out of this Venetian plaster. Some people are expecting an entirely matte finish with no texture to it. Venetian plaster is intentionally a finish that's going to have some texture to it. And so if you're expecting it to look like a finished painted wall, you're going to be disappointed in the texture because that's not the intent of the material. The material that was shown, that was approved by everyone, including the board, had some texture to it. Now, the amount of that texture, how it gets applied, the different application methods, there are literally dozens and dozens of options for that.
Yeah.
So,
I guess I can say personally, I would appreciate the texture, and I appreciate the look of
No, we
the
didn't.
texture, or the plaster
I
itself.
think it's
but-
something that needs to be seen in person. We have, I don't know, maybe a dozen different application methods and in-place options up at the moment that the board could look at. But I agree with Mr. Potter that, Commissioner Varela had some concerns about it. He thought it looked more like just a concrete finish. Is that really what you want in your, I mean, again, we have a dozen examples of places this has been installed in other public buildings that we have designed throughout the state that are happy with the applications. I think it's an appropriate material. There's no concern really about the actual functional application. It's really just down to the aesthetics of, will you be happy with it in the space? We don't want to give you a courthouse that you walk into and say, this is not the finish on these walls that I expected.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what did the judges, what were their opinions on it?
Well, we had two different colors to this Venetian plaster. The judges really didn't like the darker color. The lighter color they were fine with, and so we've actually pivoted to keeping that lighter color and going with an even lighter color and getting rid of the darker color. So the darker color was the one that they didn't like just because of how busy they felt it was. They just felt it was too much texture.
Okay.
So we could vote on
Well,
this and-
Board, I suggest then we set a committee of the whole after our board meeting next week. Is that?
Sounds like we'll have to go out there, though.
And
Yeah, I honestly think you need to see it in person and make some decisions from that.
I agree.
so, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we can finish off with this vote and then make a motion for a committee to hold like at 11 o'clock tomorrow, or next Tuesday, to go out there and see it. So then
Sure.
you got a chance to see it. You can make the call there and just have it, so they can go, they know which way to go. And that should be quick enough to get this turnaround?
I think so. Mitch, makes sense?
All right.
Yeah, I know the contractor's getting very concerned. This is about a 3-month process. The whole building. By the time we order the product, get it on site, certified.
So, but making a decision next Tuesday should be fine, though?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I mean, I look like we have a lot of the people that are working on the project here today. And does anybody have any pictures of this that we could put up? That I can at least look at what we're talking about? Because I think we might go out there and go, really? We called the committee of the whole for this for, I think. I mean, not that I'm opposed to going out there and looking at it as a group. I don't want to.
Good morning, Board. This application is literally the entire public space of the entire building.
Okay, so.
So it's big.
Okay.
And I encourage you to come out and take a look at it. And I just kind of full disclosure to Anthony's point, want to make sure you're getting what you want in this building. It's what public sees. It's almost the entire finishes with the exception of the lobby.
Madam
So it's a big piece that I'd encourage you to come out and take a look at it and try to get this thing figured out next week.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Alan, I concur with that, and for Commissioner Vetch's concern, I don't like calling meetings just for the sake of meeting, but this one is the public face. This is one of those major things. It's like the slots for the windows out in front. That was something the whole board needed to see. Did you like this look or that look? This is the public face. I think this is important enough where everybody gets to say, okay, yeah, we like it, or, it looks like Uncle Lester's farmhouse.
Well, and like Alan's saying, it sounds like it's a fussy sort of thing. Hey, do you like this finish? Do you not like how this wall looks? Do you like how this wall looks? But it is the entire public lobbies, all of the public spaces for the entire building. So I don't want any of the board members to walk into the building when it opens and say, why did we choose this material?
Oh, my Lord, what is going on here?
Including Commissioner Burrell. So.
And Madam Chair and Commissioner Potter, thank you. I respect that because I didn't know the scope of it, and I just wanted to ask that, and if he had some visuals, at least to give us, at least get our mind thinking a little bit of what it's supposed to be.
And we certainly do have some visuals, but like I was saying, there are so many different ways to apply this material. There's so many nuances to the different colors of the material. If you apply it in sort of a more linear texture or more of a fan texture, if you use a more tan color or more, gray color, there's just so much nuance to it that without physically seeing it in person, I think it would do you a disservice to make a decision.
Madam Chair, one more question. How much of it is the area has been applied to? Is it like 10% of an area, 20% of the area? Like how much?
So far, about maybe 5% of the overall area has been applied.
Okay.
So there's enough that you can see that, and then we've done, like I said, about a dozen sample areas that are about 4 feet by 8 feet, so that you can see a bunch of different example possibilities.
Yeah, that's great.
So there's a lot to see. There's a lot that's been swirling around this for the last month or so. We just need to get the entire board to make a decision, because I don't think any one person feels comfortable saying, this is my personal taste, I'm going to impose this on the entire building.
Madam Chair, is there any chance that maybe we can just so you can make it, is it fast enough if we wait and we have a committee of the whole on this week on Thursday?
We do.
Charlie's not here though, so we should wait till, never mind. So we better wait till next week. All right.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes and the recommendation. And if there's no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you much for, helping us with this, because you're right, we want to do right by the public, and we want to have a good product, and we are going to have a wonderful product.
Going to be there for 50 years at
Yep.
least. So.
It better be more than 50.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Potter?
I'd like to make a motion to have a committee of the whole for next Tuesday, March 3rd, meet at 11 o'clock out at the Justice Center to look at these materials and have us make a decision then so the contractor can move forward.
I'll second it.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner Delyden, set a committee of the whole at the Justice Center project next Tuesday at 11. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Commissioner Delyden, would you like to do the Government Center? Or you want Commissioner Potter to do it, since you've got 3 technologies?
Oh, he's doing fine with
Okay,
the buildings.
you're doing
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Delyden. I sat in on the new Government Center Owners Committee for Commissioner Vetch, who was down testifying at the Capitol on a very important issue for Wright County. Thank you for doing that. So first one, I like being involved in these because the building thing is more in my wheelhouse there. And they're talking about the updates and the short-term schedule, gave an update of concrete power tower pours and the steel erection. Sometime this week, the tower on the west side should be all poured and up to the final level. And there's north of 50% of the steel is already in those floors. And then they'll start putting the sheets for the flooring down and all that, and it moves forward. I know that they talked about the tip-up walls will be sometime early June, sometime early, mid-June, sometime the tip-up walls. That's when Joe Q. Public will see it all of a sudden turn it into a building. So that's kind of it. Talking about the change of the site, work in the parking lot and the 3rd floor. The parking structure over there Makes an interesting challenge from where it was to where we moved it, because that also affects the Justice Center parking with the judges in the back, and more to come on that. The PR9 change order has not been fully executed yet. Let's say there's the breakdown of the third floor. The thing is, current price is just under $3.2 million, which is good news from what we first anticipated. We were anticipating closer to $4 million, 3.8 from the original one, to upsize the third floor to make it the thing, which I think is the correct way to do it long-term, instead of piecemeal like this building has been. And they spoke with parking arrangements, parking structure with Wilczek and Philippi, and the schedule of the stall counts and the reducing and the finishes, different minor little housekeeping things, nothing really major going on out there right now. And they're talking about the Health and Human Service drop box, as well as location services for Trailblazer drop off, minor things that they're in the works as we speak right now. There are no recommendations coming out this one. This is pretty early in the project. Everything seems to be going well. They're a little behind because of weather and that, but that's typical for this time of year. And the next meeting is in March 18th. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. There is no recommendation.
All right.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. I just had one little typo. The second paragraph, sixth line down, serving. Third word in, without the E. All right. Neat.
It's nice to know the
Other
grammar
comments?
police are on the job.
I pick up something here and there, but anyway. All right. No other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. It's amazing how these structures are going up, for sure. So the training, tactical training center updates. So Commissioner Burrell and I attended on February 18th, 2020. And feel free to chime in anytime, Alan, about things that we discussed. So the Tactical Training Center, Commissioner Burrell and I were there along with Alan and the sheriff, the Captain Hoffman, and the building, not the contractors. And Mackenzie spoke about the upcoming schedule. The roofing activity should be completed in about 1 week, and the upper level is completed, but the lower roof is still being worked on. The temp heat has been running inside, and the frost is completely gone now, so they're able to get that work done. The underground work is underway, and the mechanical and electrical piping is being placed. The second floor concrete deck will be poured. That will be tomorrow, and the whole building will be poured the first week of March. They noted the coordination meeting took place with the Sheriff's Department relating to the Emergency Operations Center and a couple of pending changes that developed. Cabinets for the EOC responder equipment are being developed for the west wall, and the floor box locations have been changed for electrical and data. There was discussion about the waste holding tank that's been required for the drain in the storage area. And the state requires that, even though there's no cars being stored or whatever in the garage, that they have to still have a separate drain for that. And Hoffman spoke to a key management system that the facility would allow for minimization of hard key distribution, yet allow for hard key use when needed by training or response personnel. The electronic box allows for someone to check out with a key with an assigned code or electronic key card. So they're working on all these systems. And the systems that are being installed at the law enforcement center in this box would be an extension of that system to keep better track of the physical keys. The cost presented for that was just over $12,000. And Wilczek spoke to the proposals for the propane tank systems at the site. The propane system low-cost proposal was from AmeriGas at $17,992, which was much cheaper than the other bid. The system would be an outright purchase, so that allows Wright County to use, any vendors instead of having a contract with one company. And several monitors will be mounted around the room, and a touch controller driving the content to given displays. Proposal has been submitted for emergency funding through the, I jumped ahead. We talked about the EOC technology proposal from SPY, and it came in at a very hefty cost of $270,000, but this is going to serve as emergency response team as well as fit to double as a training room. And so then I can repeat what I just said about the several monitors will be mounted around the room with the touch pad controller driving the content. Proposal has been submitted for emergency funding through the Homeland Security Emergency Management, and it's anticipated a large portion of this cost will be approved. And so anyway, things are moving along. I went into the building, and it's a huge open space right now, but it's nice to look up and see the decking and to know that it's going to be all enclosed and it'll be pouring. And so, yeah, it's moving right along. The sheriff was pretty excited to see the training spaces that we're going to have. So the recommendation was to approve the key management system, propane system, and EOC technology package. Meeting is March 17th, 2020. And with that, I can't make the motion, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to
Thank you.
approve the Tactical Training Center Owners Committee minutes and recommendations.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Potter, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Is there any more discussion or questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Delyden.
there's a major difference between these two.
I know.
And one looks like they're using 1-inch pipe, the other one looks like they're using 2-inch pipe.
You're talking about the
Propane.
The propane system. Are we sure that AmeriGas has everything that included? I mean, when we're half the price, it just makes me kind of nervous, especially when I see there's different size piping.
Hey, good morning, Board. Commissioner Delyden, yes, they have worked that through. They were given the same specs when we went out for the cost proposal, as well as I know they've had follow-up discussions with RGM Construction on site about the work. The installation, I don't know why there's a discrepancy. I guess I don't ask that question when somebody submits a proposal, why it's different. I don't share those proposals with the people submitting. So the items have been discussed, worked through, and I guess I don't have a good explanation as to why it would be that much different, but we got proposals based on the same content, the same discussions, and the same review, so.
Yeah, we had quite a discussion about that since there is such a vast difference in the,
I know the contractors have been in discussion with RGM to make sure that they're understanding the scope, the installation, the connections, who's doing what, and there's been a lot of discussion about it, so.
Okay, well, then I'll have to stand behind it.
sure. Any more discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Madam
So no-
Chair, Board Member.
Yes.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Potter.
Chair. I just want to shout out for the IT department. I mean, with all these projects going on, this has been a lot of pressure on them to get things done in
Oh,
their
my.
time. And my lord, this is, I mean, you think Justice Center and even the Government Center, just the beginning part of it, and now the tax center, I mean, you're looking at all the things that they're juggling, getting through. That's, just shout out and kudos to IT department for keeping on top of this. This is a lot coming at them really quick.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about that. Yeah, we can see why they are having a little overtime.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, you put that on top of the ERP.
Yeah. A lot of things happening behind the scenes, that's for sure. All right. We vote.
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. And now we have 3 sets of Wright County Technology Committee minutes. Commissioner Delyden.
Speak of the devils.
Where's your horns?
I'm not sure why we,
Got these,
this goes back from November 6th, December 18th, and January 22nd.
I thought it was a typo when I first read it, but
We had a bit of a backlog.
we hadn't
Yeah.
So
approved
we
those
had,
minutes yet, so.
We've been tracking the meetings we had and had a few that were outstanding, so we wanted to make sure that we got them to the board so we can kind of close this loop.
There's, It's pretty much all informational. There really is nothing that was, decisions were made at all. It's all informational. A lot of it, and I'm just going to talk about all
three?
We'll have to do each one individually to
Yes,
vote
you
on.
do. Yes, you do.
We have to.
It would be
approve
best
each
if you
one
could.
individually.
All right. Okay, so November 6th, before the snow fell, we talked about the ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. Again, that's an ongoing discussion on where it's at. Different projects that were going on. I think this one was at the point where we decided that we needed to hire another business analyst, because that was kind of where the bottleneck was happening with 1.5 of our business analysts is dealing with the ERP system, was kind of bottlenecking all the other stuff. And again, we talked about the staffing and also the cyber incident response plan. The county risk manager, Tim Dahl, and IT director, Matthew Fombe, been reviewing it. And again, this is a very high priority. We want to make sure that we don't have any issues with anything happening outside the county and somebody hacking us and holding us ransom like it's been happening for some cities and counties throughout the United States. So with that, again, there's no recommendations, it's just information. I'll make a motion to approve these minutes.
Second.
Okay.
Motion made by Commissioner Delight, second by Commissioner Vetch. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
On December 18th, we met, and again, we discussed the ERP, where it's at. Actually, it was a kind of a break time because of the holiday season. Again, the project progress, all the different things that were going on. They introduced a new business analyst that day. Where to bring the future projects to IT, and we kind of highlighted that we want to make sure all IT projects go through IT. To make sure that nobody's purchasing anything outside the, without IT being aware of it. Because you buy a piece of software, it has an effect on other parts of the system. So we need to vet it out before we do anything. We talked about the USB policy, where we're not going to be allowing USBs except for the ones that are being provided by the county, which are, what's the word I'm looking for here? They're locked out, they're special, so that it's just, help me, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't think now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's to make sure that if it gets lost, that it's nobody could actually hack into it at all. And then they talked about the fiber to the FBI building, and again, they need to get that going. FBI Technical Training Center, the FBI needs it also, so they were discussing that. And I believe that all got set up with, I believe it's the city.
City's part of it.
Yeah.
And that is moving forward, right?
It is. I apologize. I don't have the most recent update. I know Alan and T have been working through that one.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. Again, no recommendations, all information.
Motion made by Commissioner Delight. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Vetch. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And on January 22nd, we met again, the group, again, discussion regarding the ERP, where we're at with that. Cyber the company we've gotten hired to work with us on this will provide additional support through the end of February, beginning of March. And as the work on coding of the county ERP environment continues, currently working with the human capital management sessions regarding the core benefits and human resource functions, and payroll and that sort of stuff. Another item talked about was VPN, virtual private network. This is a lot so that remote workers can tie into the county system. Will allow up to 500 staff to remote in the case of a natural disaster, weather-related. So this will make us more mobile and more functional in the event of a natural disaster, just in case we ever have an earthquake or something. And again, project portfolio. Project portfolio analyst just reviewed all the different existing IT projects that are going on. And there's a lot of different ones throughout the county, different departments having some. And they do a lot with what we've been dealing with. One of the newest ones that are coming up is the assessor's camera, which I believe we just approved here. And the camera system is computer-assisted mass appraisal. The existing system is at end of life. It's no longer being supported. And it's something that's very frustrating because there's very few choices because of our Minnesota tendency to have the most complicated system in the United States for property appraisal. Thank you to the state for dealing with that. I get really frustrated that we have to have such a difficult system instead of working with existing systems that are out there so that we don't have to have things made for Minnesota. But I guess people down at the Capitol know better than I do in that respect. The other thing that was talked about was we're going to be getting a software connectivity map to show how our software and applications connect and talk to each other. So something that's going to be coming up. And that's when we're getting a portfolio analysis position. Has that been filled, do you know?
Not sure.
And then there was a discussion regarding the IT staffing, losing a few different people and dealing with contractors to get certain things accomplished, to try and focus so that we can get things moving forward. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. Again, information only, no recommendation.
Second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Lyden, second by Commissioner Potter. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with Commissioner Delyden. The property tax is just beyond ridiculous here, and Joe Q. Public rips on us about it all the time, but we didn't create the system. We have to conform with the system, which is kind of, I'd say, you would think smarter minds down there could have thought something up a little bit better than that.
Well, I guess, you go back to the issues they had with HHS and the software that was built. And of course, the one that we all love is...
Don't say it.
Okay,
You'll
well,
have to go to confession if you do.
regarding DVS, or not DVS, the Department of Public Safety, the
License.
drive license and tabs and stuff. Again, instead of having things that are more general throughout the United States, we have to have things that are more complicated in Minnesota.
Overthinking.
All right, any more discussion?
Did I miss anything regarding any of those sort of things over at the IT department?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Where are we with ERP right now?
So this week we're working on scheduling, time and attendance and payroll. So today's date's on payroll.
Cyber Week here through the end of March then?
They will be here, wrapping up this week, the week of the 9th through the 12th. They're going to be on break, often configuring, give us some time to do some internal sessions. We need to map out some more processes. And then the plan that we'll be returning again the week after.
Are things going as expected, moving things along pretty good, or we've been finding some hiccups along the way?
There's been some hiccups, admittedly. I mean, this is a big project. I know we'd have things. I think things are generally pointed in the right direction. The challenge now is we're trying to gather all of our processes and allow them to configure the system. And it's hard for us, as right now we don't have a configuration to react to. I know Pete, our ERP administrator, has been able to get into the system and start doing a lot of training, start learning how to set up and configure the things that he'll be able to control. So, you know, nothing has gone, you have a vision of how things may go, and it doesn't necessarily always follow that, but I think we're still in a good place, so.
Good.
Now, have they helped us to maybe streamline some of our operations instead of doing things the way we have been doing things the way general business practices are going, so that we can streamline? And for the public, ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and again, it's a complete software system that eliminates a lot of the silos that we currently have. It'll make it much more efficient, so.
Sure. So certainly that's been one of the mantras of the project, is that we recognize that there's always opportunities to improve processes. Nice thing about Oracle, it's a system that's used public, it's used a lot in private, so there's some business practices that are out there that are adopted that we've been able to, or planning to adopt. That said, there's some that, because we are government and there's certain unique reports that we'll have to run, or situations we have where we'll have to have a bit of a hybrid of that. But we've tried to, as a procedure, to adopt best business practices as much as possible.
All right.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. And we move on to the Advisory Committee Advisory Board updates. Administrator Kelly, would you like to start? Nate?
Sure. So I guess first I'd like to start off, yesterday was our employee recognition event. That's always a fun event. We have awards, of course, for our 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and this year we had 35-year award winners as well, so that was always fun. So I wanted to extend my congratulations again to Jeremy Baker, a communications officer in the Sheriff's Office, and Shannon Tucker, a social worker in Health and Human Services. We had 2 individual award winners this year. Those folks have really gone above and beyond, and it's always exciting and great to hear the great work that our employees do and to be recognized by their peers for that. In addition, our group of the year this year was the Veteran Service Office. I think we've all been very pleased with the work that Greg has done in his office. He's implemented a lot of changes and taken on a lot of initiatives that I think have really moved that office forward. So very happy to see him win, and his group to win the Veteran Service Office of the Year, Group of the Year to that office. So good event. Other items, just kind of some updates. As I mentioned, ERP goes continuing on this week with some more of the HCM. As I mentioned previously, met yesterday with Parks and Highway to start working on some of the logistics of storage for the new ditch drainage positions. So we think we've got that sorted out. Had the opportunity to meet out at Trailblazer on Friday. They kicked off their construction project. Kind of have a meeting with the architect, start planning the schedule, and some of the takeaways I have to work on, both at the attorney's office and helping with some of the bidding, as well as the finance logistics of getting things paid and move forward. So that project will be underway. I'm anticipating a schedule for that to be coming soon, and I'll share that with you when I get it. So yeah, a lot going on there. I believe our procurement analyst, we just need to land on a date for them to start, so then they'll be able to help assist in the procurement aspects of the ERP project as well. So I think Commissioner Vetch may want to talk about some of the work that's been done at the legislature on some of the items that we talked about at our legislative meeting. I know staff, Flaherty and Hood, and Commissioner Vetch and Potter were both down at the Capitol last week. So, and I know the legislative AMC meeting is this week too. So that's been taking a lot of everybody's time. So that's kind of what I had for updates.
Thank you. Yeah, as you said, there's a lot in the works.
Yes.
Thank you. Did you want to go next?
Sure. So last week on, well, I'll kind of go in chronological order. We thank you, Administrator Kelly, for sitting in our Wright County Transit Advisory meeting. We kind of talked about ridership in Wright County, and City of Otsego and City of Cokato over 100% increase in ridership from 2018 to 2019. Cokato was almost 200% increase. It was, and they didn't have a small ridership to begin with. It was, so it's, yeah. A lot of demand out there. We're still working on slowly getting into it. We had a lot of discussion because a lot of the cities have a desire for commuter connections. It's something that it's going to take some time. We don't have enough to meet our regular dial-a-ride demand, so it's a little bit more on the 5, 6, 7 year before we could get to the point where we could get that commuter connection piece. Because at this meeting we went over our 5-year plan. And that was one of the areas that was addressed in our 5-year plan by the consultants that is a high demand for Wright County, the residents wanting. It's something that we're going to look at, seeing if we can do sooner than in the 5, 6 year kind of time range, and see if we can move it up earlier, but it's going to take a lot of partnerships between Metro Transit and us in trying to coordinate if we were going to do something of that capacity. And we have to make sure that there's still enough demand out there if we would start to design those connections down 55 to meet up with those buses or on 94. So it'll be more discussion piece, but there is a lot of interest, so.
Yeah, great.
Commissioner Vetch?
Yes.
We got some new buses that's going to be increasing our route that aren't out on the system currently.
Yeah.
How many new buses we're going to be dealing with?
We have 4 new ones.
4 new ones?
Yep.
So that'll help increase the ridership dramatically too.
Dramatically,
Do we have
yes.
an idea when those will be on the?
It's a little, 2 of them should be out here within the next few months, but the other 2, it kind of depends on when we can get licensing for drivers, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, well, which I'm sure, right? We should discuss. Yep.
Yep, so, provided we can get through the testing facilities faster, we can maybe get them out there faster. That's where we kind of got bottlenecked. We've had a lot of drivers that have got hired, got ready to take the test, but they sat on the bench too long and they had to find employment sooner someplace else. So unfortunately, that's the case when you can't get road testing for 3 to 6 months. So.
Which is another thing you've been talking about at the state level.
At the state level, that's what brings me to segues very great into what I was down on Wednesday down at the Capitol, working on the variety of different bills. One of them being that House File 3300, which a good handful of our legislators were lucky in our area to sign on to, which is going to hopefully get some repair done to road testing in Minnesota. We'll see. Flaherty and Hood is helping us connect. There's a similar bill out there by Representative Novotny.
Oh, Novotny's got one?
Yep, and that one is more designed on a private side of it, privatizing it. Ours is somewhat privatizing it, but having to be a deputy register. So we're kind of working on trying to finesse those 2 bills and then trying to connect up with the deputy registers lobbying group to kind of come together with a cohesive plan. And then also down there, we got our bills all introduced for our bonding request, so we're off and running on that. So happy to see that. So let's hope that we can have some success over the next month and a half or so.
Yeah.
Then other than that, had our Ditch 33 first work group meeting. That'll be coming here to formalize, I'm guessing next week. I'm guessing Matt will bring that forward. Really, really good discussions. I think that should be the definite go-to methodology for ditch systems that have high cost barriers and a very contentious environment. I think this is the definitely the best way to go. We put the 3 to 5 of the largest landowners in the room with township members, city members on this one, and staff, and we're really kind of educating everybody on what we really have to work with and what we have to do by law to try and come up with a better recommendation. And I think there's a lot of appreciation from the landowners as a whole, as well as the ones that are on the committee, to have some say in what's going to take place. So.
Good. It's been a long project. You've had a lot of time in that, for sure.
I think our redetermination of benefits will probably be sitting out there in purgatory for almost 18 months by the time we figure out what we're going to do with it. But it's important that I think everybody understands where things are at and why we have to do what we have to do. So if it means making it sit there on the shelf for a little while to get that education barrier overcome, it is what it is.
Yep.
So.
Thank you. Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first off, I want to applaud Commissioner Vetch for all the work you're doing down the Capitol debt. Navigating that swamp down there is a little different, and try to make sure that Wright County's at the table, not on the menu, and important issues to us. I want to touch in on the economic development, the transportation thing. We're at 40% of ridership now, and they want the goal of, 90 to 95% by 2025?
90%, yeah.
90%. And that's going to be a little tough, the way the legislature's been funding this thing, because we're the Johnny-come-lately on this. So part of the press conference that I was at yesterday had to do with rural transit, along with transportation funding, which it's not in the governor's radar right now. It's all health and human service and education. That's it. Trying to get that. And the rural transit is a big component of this. If they want to get these goals, they better fund it. And they know what the problem is, but they don't have the political will to actually fund it. And that's where we're trying to make the point with, when you have $1.3 billion surplus, these are the things when you get the one-time thing that you can fix it so it's done, similar to broadband. It's 150 million. Just fund the darn thing. Quit doing 5-10 million at a crack, because it doesn't get anywhere. Get it done with. That's what, if you're going to spend that money, spend it on those kind of things instead of future expenditures that are sitting down there. So that group, the transit group, it was, impressive with the increases. And Buffalo had over 68,000 rides. And it's amazing how many people are using this. The other thing, we had library board last Tuesday night. And once again, instead of a interpreter that we had a 6-month grant for, and when it expired, that person went away and they came back and wanted it permanent, we said, majority of us said no. The interpreter up in St. Cloud is a St. Cloud expense, not the whole library board system. They came back again, calling it a cultural advisor this time. And it's like, no, we don't need to spend money on that person to create a job for one constituency in St. Cloud, because if you're going to do it for one, let's have a Chinese, let's have a German interpreter. No, that's not our purpose of being there. So it's more discussion on that, but that was probably the most contentious issue there. Is like it came back, morphed as a different name. It's like, well, this is back as something else, and it's not necessary to have that person there. On the 7W committee, that was last Friday. Wright County did not get a project. The County Road 36 east of 94 did not score as high as a couple other projects, but then in the fairness of equity, and when you stand back, this is for 2024 construction for that number. In all fairness, you want all your counties to get a shot at getting some money. This time, Benton County actually got a big bone, $2.5 million of the $3 million annual we got for federal gas tax money coming at us. Congratulations to them. They've been always getting like the $200,000 projects, the small ones. They finally got a big one. So I'm looking forward to next year actually having ours getting a little bit higher rating on that. Personal opinion here with why 36 didn't score as high as it could have. Usually they just say it's an alternate route, 101 down to the freeway and that. But being that our bridges on 101 crossing the river and 94 are very new, it didn't help with the scoring process of that. So that if that waited a year or 2 or 3, it's not going to be the end of the world. But we're going to bring it back there again. Also, with transportation alternative projects, we had one for Howard Lake and one for the Dassel-Cokato School there. Both of those were kind of thrown in at the last moment. They didn't score very well, so it's back to the drawing board and how we score better on that. We just threw them in there just for something. So now they critique what you need to do to strengthen us, what you get to, and being that they were last-minute throw-ins, they kind of ended up where they belonged on the bottom. So we'll keep working on that one. So also, that was with MnDOT 7W, and the next one was the I-94 Coalition. We met last Thursday, and we went through the update, the debriefing for the build grant that we didn't get, and looking forward to DC trips and all this stuff. And the thing is that the 94 with the build grant, we've did 2 years in a row, and they said it's 3 to 4 years before you usually get onto the pile. The disappointing part is they had 3 different piles: high priority, medium, low priority, and not one project in Minnesota got to the high priority pile, which got to Secretary Cho's desk. And there was all kinds of, in my opinion, it's a gobble what they say, what we didn't do. We didn't tell our story good enough, and what we figured out is that we just didn't get our story in the people that actually do the grading of the projects. We had all the ranking bananas there, but we didn't have, we needed to follow up with their, the one that are actually grading the projects. So it's the, with the regional national connections, they told us that make it so it's not just 94 there, but it goes all the way from Chicago to Seattle. And I know we talked about that, but it didn't get in the brain box of those people that score the project. So we're going to do that a little bit different. And they also recommended that we do separate letters from all the congressional people and the senators, followed up by a call, of which we put it all lumped together, that do different, but then have your Congress people follow up with a call and a meeting with Federal Highway. We only had, the only follow-up calls that I was aware of, that I was told by the staffers there, is Hagedorn and Emmer were the only ones that did follow-up calls to FHWA, Federal Highway, on the projects in the state, which is kind of problematic, which you'd think all of them would chime in and say that. Our senators did not call in and say anything there, so that's, we're going to be working on them again for this one next time around. So, and then also they wanted more CEO interaction, although we had Golden Plump and FedEx, Bill Goings that was there before. They want more of those, but they want some of those from like a C.H. Robinson and bigger companies. So that's a logistics company, them people over there out in D.C. talking to them, which if they can take the time, that'd be great, but they wanted it basically all the way through the region from, like, say, Chicago, Seattle, all those CEOs of different corporations, big ones, because they all have ties in there. I think it was more,
is that what the St. Cloud APO is doing a big push in, I think, about March or April to DC on that? Is that what they're trying to do, bring more of the business people on that visit?
I think that's what they're, that's one of the things, excuses they gave us. I mean, some of it you gotta believe it's probably political on that, on where it's at. You just got to keep knocking on the door. We did the freight, the growth, the crush data, the economic impact with the medical information, the warehouse, you know, and just got to keep going in front of them. And that's the problem, is that not one of them scored high priority, which is kind of befuddling at best, because how do you not see this with one piece left to get 34 miles all upgraded? How can you not see this? And, you know, Anthony Bedell and Ann Ranky, two ranking people there, saw that, but the people scoring the projects going to make sure they get them there. So that's with our lobbyist firm, Lockridge Grindle, got to make sure those people that actually score the projects, make sure at least one or two of those are sitting in those meetings with us, and that's what we learn from that. So we just keep going on that one. Also, the other Transportation Alliance was looking for a request for the I-94 Corridor Coalition to join them, and we had discussion on that, and it was basically noted that all the cities and the county on that corridor are already members of that, and that they weren't interested in paying an additional fee on top of that. So that's one big thing. The other part with the, well, remember we met council, and this is part we're going to incorporate some of this talking points in there. Met Council did the corridor study on 55 and 94, that last annual meeting, and I think one of the things that we missed that our corridor 94 serves 85 of 87 counties in the state. That's just another piece we got to keep adding to them to ensure that this is why this is such an important project, because if you can touch that many of your counties with one road, that makes it a high priority in my book. But and I didn't have as much going on last week as Commissioner Vetch did, but I'll work on it next week.
No, I think you have plenty going on. Commissioner
That's all.
Potter, I appreciate all your efforts to try and work on getting that federal dollars, because I tell you, that's the hardest stuff, but it's the most rewarding money that we can get here locally to get projects done. And I tell you, we're really fortunate here in Wright County to have someone like you that goes the extra length to make those connections.
Our own lobbyist, Commissioner Potter.
And Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Rhodes.
with the federal money, it just bothers me to no end that Minnesota's a net payer by a long shot. We're only getting about 42 cents out of every dollar we put into the federal gas tax, and then back out. And we are not the top, but we're just right knocking on the door of the top donors to this thing and trying to get it so we're quit being a flyover state. And this has been frustrating. I figured with Vice President Pence being from the Midwest, that would help, but it's not really taken off as I had hoped for. And I'm going to keep knocking on Congresswoman Craig to push a little harder on this, because she's on the Transportation Committee and she's close here. You know, and Stauber's there, but he's more of the Iron Range when it comes down here. But trying to get those people to push a little harder next time and do follow-ups. So we got a game plan going forward for the next time, so let's see if that works.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Glyden.
God, I feel so embarrassed. I don't seem to have as much going on as you guys do. Wellness Committee met last week on Tuesday night and or Tuesday afternoon. And shout out to those guys that they've helped keep our insurance down by getting a lot of the employees active in wellness situations. And also, in fact, there was a conversation Mr. Kelly and I had the other day regarding what our safety director, risk management, has done. And he's also part of that wellness committee, but our insurance hasn't gone up and actually has gone down because of the work that they've been doing, the wellness and the risk management. So we may give them a hard time, but they've done an excellent job for the county and for the residents as a whole to keep costs down. They have a few different projects going on, which are again on the internal website. I went to the city of St. Michael last night regarding strategic planning that we'll be dealing with on Infotech in March here, just to kind of give them an idea of what we're looking for and how the county and the cities can work together better, what we're going to be in the future, bedroom, business, how we're going to get there, all those sort of things. Told them to think outside the box. Told them they're the only cities in Minnesota that can say they're in the right county, so. On that,
That's true.
my life is boring. I thank
Yeah.
you for that, because need to make the strong partnership between us and our cities and townships.
Well, I was at the Wright County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council. That was a rather short meeting, and that part of it was, and then we had the fire chiefs after that. But one of the updates was, they're watching out for the coronavirus. We so far just had the one Minnesota guy that was quarantined in California. But what's been different this year was there's now been a spike in the influenza A, and that's kind of been going through the schools. And what happened this year that's never happened before is they had influenza B show up first. In the past, they've always said influenza A show up. So it's kind of odd that now influenza A is going through. But we
Somebody's
just-
trying to rewrite the alphabet.
somebody got mixed up.
E before A.
So, and so then we had a gentleman from DNR Forestry, and he spoke with the fire chiefs, and right now, the Wright County Fire Chiefs are the one that write the variant, or approve the variance for burning permits. So there was some discussion about, would we request that the variance permits from approved vendors and agencies are referred to the DNR Forestry, and fire chiefs continue to take requests and issue variances, or do they do requests for running fires, which are like prairie grass fires, are referred to the DNR Forestry, and the fire chiefs will continue to issue variances for brush piles, or all variances requests are referred to the DNR Forestry. Fire chiefs would no longer issue any permits. And they were kind of all divided about, what to do. Or should fire chiefs and Wright County Sheriff resolve to remove Wright County from DNR electronic burning permit system and establish their own burning permit system? So there's a lot going on with the DNR only does electronic permits. So a lot of the people like to contact their fire chiefs and say, we're going to be doing this, but then how do you do follow-up? So there's a lot of discussion about that. And then I was at the AIS meeting last week also, and we're going to have a demonstration about the CD3 station, the decontamination station, but the person wasn't able to be there, so we are forming this relatively new group with new people, and it's talked about the budget. And now that we're not having the regional inspection going on, we have the inspectors at all the lakes. So there's 28 ramps that are in our system, and there'll be one inspection day per week at the 28 ramps, and it will be 10-hour shifts. So anyway, the inspectors get like $19 an hour, so if people are looking for that kind of a job. We also have the treatment grants, the 2020 treatment grants. They'll be offering $3,000 per lake. So when they go in to do a survey of these lakes, it costs like $750 for the survey, and they can find out if they have what invasives they might have or not. And some lakes have taken surveys and said, we don't need to do any treatment for this invasive or whatever. So there's been some dollars that have come back. But based on treatment costs last year, we released $35,159 to 18 lake associations for treatment. And the curly leaf pondweed was $2,500, and over $26,000 for Eurasian milfoil, and $6,000 for starry stormwort. So it's been really wonderful, really, that the lakes that have gotten, the 2 lakes that have had starry stormwort have been so proactive, and it was a little larger project when it was discovered in Lake Sylvia as opposed to Lake Pleasant, or Pleasant Lake, because there was such a small area by the public landing, so they're able to get in and really monitor that and take care of it right away. But yeah, good group, a lot of important work, because we need to keep on top of this so we can keep our lakes as desirable as they've been, and that's about all I have. Oh, one other thing, Chief Herr from Annandale is retiring at the end of March, and so we'll be getting a new fire chief. He's done a stand-up job for his 30 years of service. So anyway, congratulations to him for upcoming retirement.
Commissioner Hewsome.
Yeah.
So on the AIS committee, I think it's good to note that, this year we set the treatment at 50,000, but I think
Yes.
that number is going to get increased because there was another $25,000 that we weren't expecting to get.
Right, yeah.
So we're going to bolster up the administrative costs to make them whole, because they shorted them by $5,000, so they'll make them whole on the administrative costs. But then I
Yeah.
think the rest of it's probably going to get turned into treatment, so that'll put us well over $60,000 to help the treatment of the lakes in Wright County.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. That came as an email after the fact. But we got the Initiative Foundation dollars came through that we didn't know if we were going to get those or not, so, yeah.
And for the public, the AIS dollars are pass-through dollars. It's not coming out of the county coffers.
Correct.
It's just pass-through dollars that the state provides us based on the number of DNR ramps that are.
And parking spaces at the
Parking.
That's right, parking.
Parking spaces at the ramps.
Yeah, I know, we
But-
gotta get more parking
Right.
spaces.
Because some of those ones like Constance where there's no parking at all, I'm not going to get any AIS dollars for that.
Yeah, that one. And
So,
Madam Chair, one
yes.
other item, and I can't believe that you got out of the public hearing for the ditches to go to the EMS if it was that short, because you missed
No, it
all the fun
wasn't.
fireworks.
No, the fire chiefs actually, the meeting went to about 9:15 or so it wasn't, yeah.
Wasn't
So
a
I
good
did-
trade-off, no.
No, it wasn't, no, so.
Yeah, it wasn't an even trade-off. We
No,
got here a little early, but-
no, the EMS portion was a little shorter, but the fire chiefs was, yeah,
Because
made
we
up for
again
it.
had the person there that was going to sue us. They didn't understand, it's not a county ditch, it's your ditch, you can't sue yourself. And then the big discussion was the DNR, their control structure, their weir. And I'm sure that they were there with the statutes right away to make sure if it's a single level weir, they don't pay, but if it was an adjustable one, they gotta pay a proportional share. And I'm sure that they were there with the statute to make sure they're not paying.
Yeah.
Which is hard to explain that to people, but those people that make the laws that are at the table doing that, especially DNR, make sure they're protected so they don't have to pay anything. And they have an effect on French Lake, which, personal opinion, they should pay a portion, but they're not, they don't have to according to the law.
All right, if there's nothing else to come before the board, we are,
Madam
yes.
Chair, for the public, some of them that are sitting out here, I think you could probably mention about the Second Amendment that'll be brought up next week at the board meeting.
Yes, we've set the discussion on resolution potential for the Second Amendment next Tuesday will be a part of our board meeting on March 3rd. Yeah, come to the mic.
State your name for the record.
Thank you, committee chair, for hearing me. My name's Katie London. I reside in Wright County. I just wanted to first apologise for letting two words become a conversation. It won't happen again.
Thank you.
Will the public be allowed any time to speak at that meeting?
Yes, it'd probably be a, relatively short, it's not probably depending on what is all on our agenda.
Okay.
But we haven't set that yet. I've requested that it be included on the agenda, so.
Okay. Could I ask an email be sent to me closer to the time as to how long we might have? Because I would hate to schedule a whole bunch of people and have 5 minutes, or have one person and then be granted 10, for which we would be very grateful, of course.
Madam Chair, if there is an inclination that there's going to be a half dozen or a dozen people that would like to speak on this, then I think this should be done in a committee setting to respect staff time and to be efficient with the county's dollars, because I don't want to have a lot of staff that are on the agenda and have a dozen people speaking and having
I would not
staff
take
waiting.
it to a dozen. I think that would be overkill. I don't think that we would need that many. If I could get 2-3 people, I would be happy with that, and I would organize that.
We normally limit comments to, 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Per person, so.
I will work with that.
If there's one person that wants to speak for a group, then they would have, 5 minutes or so.
I will limit us to 5 minutes then, and I thank you and appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything particular that you would want to hear that we can answer for you, that is your point of hang-up that we could address?
Well, I appreciate your question, and essentially, I don't know, we, of course, as a board, have not had this discussion, and so I don't know how much research each one of us have done.
Okay.
But I don't know if I would have any particular questions because of what I've read on it already, so, or if anyone else would, or Administrator Kelly, if you have any recommendations or...
Yeah, I certainly think it'd be good to specify, to agree kind of on a time period, and it sounds like 5 minutes would probably work. I know we've gotten some input as well from our legislators.
We have.
As far as resolution and recommended language, I know you've, discussions I've had with you individually, as well with other staff, I know we've received a lot of input from members of the public, so we may have a few things in drafting our own resolution to support this for the board to react to that may be slightly different than what you presented, but I think in concept and theme will be in similar lines. So just to kind of manage the expectations.
No, that's fine. I would not have expected it to have gone, just, hey, we're going to sign it just as written.
Yeah.
We just wanted to offer a starting point. And we expect it to be taken as a starting point
Yeah.
only.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
All right. If now there's no other business to come before the board, we are adjourned at 10:30. Thank you.